Let us get it. So cool little update. I now have this archive stream action on my streamer bot, which oh, I should probably hide that hook. But fortunately, I'm using a API key, so no worries. And that's triggering the YouTube VOD to be unlisted right after the stream ends. So not only is it going to be unlisted, but then it's going to be sent to, I gotta check what's going on there. It's going to be sent to, so live is empty, right? So this is what we, I actually, to give some context, I realized that anything that shows up in live also shows up in subscribers' feeds. So if we kept all of our VODs in here, which is what we did, then every subscriber is just going to see a VOD from us every single day, which is kind of annoying. So instead, once the stream ends, we can now automatically unlist it, so it'll disappear from here, and then we can add it to a playlist specifically for stream VODs. So all these videos are unlisted, but you can still find them via this this playlist. So we get the best of all worlds here. All right, what's going on here? Oh, shout out new subscriber Choff. Just in time, because now I won't be assaulting his feed. So good stuff there. That said, I think this will still, depending on whether or not subscribers have like the notifications on or off, I guess my stream will still show up for everyone. So I guess you could turn off the notifications for that. Can you turn off live notifications but not just regular video notifications? That would be important. All right, so we're continuing with our monthly theme here, day 2 essentially. What makes you unique? The context of you. This is preparing for part 2 content. So after we do all part 1 stuff, now we have to actually look into identifying and pursuing our goals. And I thought that it would be fitting to, after a introduction or a prologue, which I'm calling it, following in the footsteps of part 1. After our like introduction section, main section, we kind of have this section, which I don't know the name of it yet, overarching concepts and key players involved. This is just giving us a sense of the context of our, it's like the context of intention or something like that. I don't know if this is also a bad name, but it's basically going to be all the things that kind of contribute just to, like, before we even start trying to think about what we should be doing, like what's actually at play here. So the main things are like motivation and focus, and then like biases and drives that might be, you know, getting in the way or just something that we have to be mindful of. And then we can talk about things that we can do about that. So the question is, why wouldn't emotions be within the internal drive section? We have to consider what's going on there. But anyway, I think it would make sense, given that part 2 and this entire document is kind of catered to anyone, that we start off with the context of you. What makes you unique? We could call it that, just so that it doesn't conflict with this guy now. But this is like, it's really like what makes you unique with regards to how you think, right? It's more like what makes your mind unique. Like that's what's going on here. But yeah, so we're just going to read through the ChatGPT's research for this. And then if we have time, we're going to read through Gemini's, the second Gemini research one, which seemed to have gone into a different direction. So I think this is just giving us a sense of the space. Like I just kind of want to know the scope of the space. And the cool thing is once we go through this and I kind of write down a bunch of notes, then I could always throw this now back into a Gemini conversation and be like, hey, what am I missing in this topic? And it can fill this out for us. We have to be somewhat mindful of things of research that it tells us that we're not aware of, or that I'm not aware of. And we'll have to vet it. So let's just get into it. What makes each person unique in understanding the world and pursuing goals? What about our unique minds? Something like that. That's kind of nicer. Introduction. Every individual's way of perceiving the world and chasing goals is shaped by a unique blend of factors. These range from inborn genetic predispositions to life experiences, upbringing, and personal mindsets. Modern science rejects the simple nature versus nurture debate, recognizing that heredity? Why have I not said this word in like a long time? Why does that sound so weird?
Heredity.
Heredity, okay. Interacts with experience in complex ways. For example, genes and environment work in concert. Even identical twins with the same DNA develop into distinct individuals due to different experiences and a bit of random developmental variation. Let's just throw this. I think we should mention the twins studies. In practical terms, this means your understanding of the world, the opportunities you perceive, and how you identify and pursue your goals are the product of an intricate personal mosaic. This section by section overview will examine the scientific evidence for what makes each person unique, from our biological foundations to our social environments and psychological makeup, and how these elements influence our ambitions and goal pursuit. No single case study will dominate. Instead, we'll focus on broad, robust findings across disciplines. And hopefully it gives us places that we should look as well. All right, biological and genetic foundations of uniqueness. So a lot of this stuff we discuss in part 1. Genetic influences. Your genetic makeup provides the initial blueprint for many traits that shape how you experience the world. Twin and family studies show that a substantial portion of individual differences in personality and cognition is heritable. So where do we put that? Maybe we could just throw this on here. For instance, about 40 to 60% of the variation in Big Five personality traits. All right, so this is where we were yesterday. I think maybe we mentioned twin studies. I'm not sure. And did we actually put the 40 to 60? No, but this was the same figure that Gemini produced for us. In Big Five personality traits such as neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, conscientiousness is due to genetic differences. So let's just throw that here. Likewise, cognitive abilities like intelligence have a significant genetic component. So we discuss all of this stuff in part 1, actually. But we kind of have to go further into each one in practical ways. Like, we're not just mentioning it now. It's kind of like, okay, given this, what should we be thinking about? Importantly, these genetic effects are polygenic, and complex. Over 1,000 genes were linked to IQ. Okay, so this is important as well to mention, meaning no single gene for success exists. Genetics also contributes to more specific tendencies. For example, studies indicate that goal-oriented behaviors have some heritable basis. One found roughly 20% of the variance in children's achievement motivation, mastery goals, was genetic. Huh. Okay, we could look into this, actually. Look into this. Even procrastination, which relates to goal management, has been found to be about half influenced by genes and half environment. All right, that's pretty sweet as well. Not sweet, but interesting. So these are all just like genetics general. These findings underscore that part of what makes you you, your baseline temperament, energy levels, novelty seeking, etc., comes wired from birth. And obviously that is controversial, so we have to be mindful of that. Brain development and temperament. Biology expresses itself not only in genes, but in brain structure and early temperament. From infancy, children differ in traits like sensitivity, impulsivity, or calmness, observable temperamental differences that often persist into adulthood. Such inborn temperament can affect how easily one focuses on goals or responds to new experiences. So, did we mention this somewhere? We talked about the parenting styles, and we talked about early... Yeah, we did talk about early... early effects, early influences. But let's have this as well. Where was this? This was early temperament, which we could just connect with personality in a bit. Yep. Moreover, even identical genetics can lead to divergence, random developmental factors in the womb and early life, like minor differences in nutrition or hormone exposure, mean that identical twins aren't truly identical in personality or interests. That's key. Neuroscientists note that DNA provides a general outline for brain wiring, but random neural tuning and epigenetic factors fill in the details, yielding unique neural circuitries for each person. Right. Epigenetics, which we discussed in part 1, chemical modifications that turn genes on or off, illustrate nature-nurture interplay. For example, one study found that identical twins accumulate different epigenetic markers as they age, especially if their lifestyles diverge. So this is just early development. Different life experiences, diet, exercise, stress, etc. can alter gene expression, meaning that over time, even the same genes can functionally differ in two people. That's really important to note. This helps explain how one twin might develop a condition or trait that the other doesn't, and it highlights that your biological uniqueness is dynamic. All right. In short, our biology sets the stage. It provides each person with a starting range of traits, from cognitive capacities to emotional reactivity, that influence how we comprehend our world and pursue goals. But these innate dispositions are only one part of the story. Next, we consider how environment and upbringing shape and refine our unique outlook and ambitions. The influence of upbringing and environment. Okay, so this is family and early environment. Let's just throw this all in there. And then just continue adding to this. The context in which you grow up plays a pivotal role in shaping your worldview and aspirations. A nurturing, resource-rich environment can dramatically expand one's perceived opportunities, whereas adversity can constrain them. Let's just get the idea in here. For example, adoption studies show the power of upbringing and cognitive development. Children from impoverished backgrounds adopted into supportive, wealthy homes scored on average 15 points higher on IQ tests than their genetically related siblings who remained in less advantaged homes. In other words, the same child can perform very differently given a rich richer learning environment, early childhood experiences, quality of education, parental engagement, exposure to books and travel, all build the mental models through which a person interprets the world. Conversely, high stress environments can hinder development. Chronic stress in neighborhoods with violence or instability has shown to impair cognitive and emotional development in children, potentially making it harder for them to focus on long-term goals. Family dynamics also matter. Man, this thing is actually... This is like a tighter telling than I feel like Gemini gave. This is very densely packed. Family dynamics also matter. Supportive parenting that encourages exploration tends to foster confidence and goal setting in kids, whereas neglect or overprotectiveness might stunt qualities. Interestingly, one myth that doesn't substantially affect adult life outcomes is birth order. Despite popular belief, whether you are the eldest or youngest mainly influences behavior within the family, but is not a reliable predictor of leadership or success in the wider world. Wow. Social and cultural context. So, cultural effects. The broader social milieu, peers, culture, and society, further differentiates how people view ambition and goals. Cultural values, for instance, can frame what goals people deem worthwhile. In individualistic cultures, personal achievement and unique ambitions might be stressed, whereas collective cultures emphasize goals that harmonize with family or community. This can shape whether someone pursues an individual passion versus a socially prescribed path. That is represented here, but I'm just going to say it again. Studies in organizational psychology have found that collectivist orientations tend to boost motivation when goals are aligned with group benefit. Wow. Whereas individualist orientations focus motivation on personal achievement. Additionally, having access to role models and mentors can strongly influence one's aspirations. Through observational learning, we build self-beliefs by seeing others succeed. Wow. A child who watches a parent or mentor navigate a challenge. I do want to actually take this. Is this the same thing? Yeah. Child who watches a parent or mentor navigate challenges learns indirectly how to set and pursue goals. And I might do this so that we don't have to keep this whole link. Might just do one of these bad boys. Just link the whole sentence. Yo, Changebox. Believing in yourself is a rather funny phrase. If you weren't, you couldn't believe in you. Right. It's going well. How about you? How about yourself? Yeah, and almost it's like it's also what's the word for something that contradicts itself? An oxymoron? It's an oxymoron in the sense that believing in yourself almost implies that you can change who you are. Like it almost implies that you can move in the world, you can move upwards or reach some goal and whatnot. So believing in yourself as like believing in who you currently are contradicts that. I'm doing good, carry on. Yes, I would like to see someone not believe in themselves. Well, I don't think I would like to see it, but I also don't think it can be done. I think that the yogis might disagree with that one, since they do strive to get to a place where they don't hold some notion of self or some sense of self. Okay. Even the peer group can shape ambition. A peer culture that values curiosity and entrepreneurship may spur a person to dream big, whereas one that dismisses those values might suppress outward ambition. So these are all topics we will talk about throughout the document. So I'm wondering if actually this context of you section, our unique minds, this might benefit from being in the prologue. Like we can just talk about all these things generally, which they're all going to come up again in I guess throughout the document, or throughout part 2. But have you seen yogis? Those guys barely bathe. Don't listen to them. Yeah, but for them, no one didn't bathe, right? You know, it's you could see why it makes sense for them. The gurus are the guys you're looking for. Ooh. Do they aspire to the same end, or do they try to keep a sense of self so that they can teach? Is that the I don't know what the practical difference is between yogis and gurus yet. All right, so we are culture. Okay. Opportunities and resources. Finally, concrete opportunities or lack thereof in one's environment contributes to uniqueness and goal pursuit. Access to quality education, economic resources, and network can empower an individual to identify more possibilities. Does this fall under sociology? Characteristics of sociology, the study of human society and social behavior. So this is, I don't think this is even just sociology, but maybe we could, I think it's just more general than that. So opportunities and resources. Let's just copy this one in. For instance, a teenager exposed to diverse clubs, internships, or travel may discover passion and form goals that someone without those exposures might never consider. Yep, fair enough. Conversely, barriers like discrimination or socioeconomic hardship can limit the opportunities one perceives as attainable. Crucially, however, perception is the key. Two people in the same situation can see opportunity differently. This is where personal mindset, shaped by prior environment and experience, comes in. And it's the reason why some people manage to bloom against the odds, while others with advantage may fail to capitalize on them. The environment provides the canvas, but as the next section will show, our internal traits and mindsets determine how we paint on it. Okay. All right, the gurus are the ones you're looking for. A guru is just an outstanding leader in a field. Okay. And a yogi is a practicer of yoga. How much do you go into education and learning? Are you asking like how much will we go into education and learning? Because we will go deep into education and learning in the specific learning section of part 2. So at some point we get to, so that we get past identifying what to pursue, and then we actually have pursuing goals effectively. And this is where currently I have framing, and then I think maybe learning is next. And then we've got habit and routine. I keep switching these around, but I think it's going to be learning and then habit. Where do we want to put this? Here. And then leveraging the social environment. But yeah, we got to go deep into learning. You can't know the opportunities you aren't given. You can only imagine them, right? It's very much something that is dependent on what you could even fathom. I wasn't sure how much you already have. That was really my question. How much do you already have you already gone into education and learning? I have not gone into education and learning much at all. I think we've slated in our roadmap. I've slated August to be learning and acquiring skills. August 2026. That whole month, we're going to deep dive into how to acquire skills effectively. So many months away, but I'm sure time will fly. Learning is one of my favorite topics, but I will talk a lot if you let me. Well, yeah, once that month, put aside the month of August. Yeah, if like, I would gladly take any suggestions about that month. If you gave me an entire curriculum, I'll go through it. The goal is to be comprehensive in this document. Okay. On the topic this month. So going back here, December, what makes you unique? And specifically though, it's really like what makes, I guess this topic is, it's got a nicer title. What makes each person unique in understanding the world and pursuing goals? So while in part 1, we talk about nature and nurture, we talk about genetics, we talk about epigenetics, we talk about a lot of the stuff that affects how you think about the world, how you understand the world. Now we're really trying to hone in on how this affects our ability to identify and pursue goals. So things specifically things that relate to how we think about what's possible, and also things that relate to how, like, our motivation. So like temperament's really important for us to go deep diving in this section. Opportunities and resources, like that's a huge deal for this. Socioeconomic status, and so like the scarcity stuff, like that's something that really matters here, because now we're actually like leveraging our mind to do something deliberately, and we need to know what's involved in this process. I think you should do more of your own internal mental exploration of topics rather than relying on others to tell you what is real. Okay. You are clearly one. Oh, thank you. And I think that you would come to conclusions far different than what you find in written works. Not necessarily different and incompatible, but more rich. All right. I wonder what you're implying here. Like what would it mean for me to explore these topics myself, as opposed to what we mean by saying relying on others? Like if you mean AI, then like without AI, I would just find the books and then I would read the books. But without the books, I'm out of luck almost. I'm finding articles without articles. I'm not going to start asking people. At some point, I have to start reading something that I think that I can trust. To talk freely about what you think. Education and learning are without referencing any works whatsoever. Well, I think I do that on this channel. Usually I give my opinion, maybe to my own detriment. Not at all. Define the word without looking it up. Take the time to define it yourself, and then see what others have defined it as. I think that can be beneficial in many cases. My concern is, as we saw with the biases, like if I set my sights on a certain perspective first, then I am going to be biased towards that. And if I'm totally wrong in my understanding, then I might be shooting myself in the foot in some sense. Like I might want to go in blind on certain topics so that I don't pollute what I learn here. Because, at the end of the day, what do I know about these topics that I haven't gone into yet? So this is why I like starting with this, but then we could start going in different directions. Like once we're done with these initial Gemini discussions, then we could start finding YouTube videos of other people talking about this stuff. And then I'm going to have to, at some point I have to start thinking. So like, Like all, you know, I'm just throwing notes in here. And at some point I'm going to have to start mashing this stuff together. I'm going to have to start moving things around. I got to figure out where to put stuff. What narrative should we be telling here? What type of information makes sense to keep? What information makes sense to either throw away or be put into another section? So like I do see this process involving a lot of like, you know, novel subjective thought and not just following what other people say. But like I will make sure that this document still has that extra bit of, you know, pizzazz that I thought part 1 brought to the table. I need to make sure part 2 brings that. I also don't want to miss the one message that you mentioned. Oh, my goals. I can already tell you everyone's goal. It's inadvertent, but it's also entropy, the creation and furtherance of entropy. Yeah, I guess part 1 kind of talks about everyone's intentions at like a low level. Like it talks about predictive processing and the free energy principle and stuff like that. Like that's, but we now have to talk about goals at the level of deliberate thought. Like that's kind of where we're at now. The idea is that at all times there's things that are, you know, moving us in certain ways, like our drives or our habits, or like that's the story of part 2. It's like there's a lot of these things that are affecting what we think in the moment and what we're trying to do, what we're motivated to do. And our reflective thought can take a hold of that and push us slightly into the direction we want to go. And we have to periodically reflect so that we can ensure that we're actually going in the way that we want to go. I'm not saying you don't, but it's less about opinion than exploration. I think you question yourself too much. You don't trust yourself when you should. Yeah, for me, I feel the responsibility, and we don't even have that many people here. Like if we had 1,000 people here, then I would be much more careful than I even am now. But if the concern is that I don't seem to have confidence in myself, then let me dissuade you on that. I try to act both as my biggest critic and my biggest fan at the same time, and I think that type of balance gives me a good position to do some cool stuff. Like I think part 1 of this document is unbelievable, but it also needs a ton of work. It's like very much imperfect in many ways, and we have to slowly get it better. But in its current state, I think it's incredible. Like I think it's mind-boggling. But you know, there's nothing wrong with the bias as long as you don't let it rule you. I know you won't. That's why I'm telling you to do it. I do appreciate the feedback, though. At some point, you will have to start thinking, good sir, you can't stop. In regards to goals and entropy, we attempt to create structures that remain throughout time. This creates entropy, as does the maintenance of the structure. Right? I think I saw someone talk about entropy in an interesting way recently that was, I think, kind of similar to what you're saying right now. And it might have been specifically in regards to predictive processing. I'm not sure. I'm not saying you're not self-confident. I'm saying you are underestimating yourself. Darmanon, what's good? If Stan Richardson has only one fan, then that is me. If Stan Richardson has no fans, then that means I am no longer on Earth. Well, thank you very much. Well, it's minimum 2. Nice. All right. Where were we at? I think we're starting to get to... Oh, we actually go far into the traits here. This is cool. So this is what we haven't done yet. Personality. So let's do that. You are unique Disposition. That's actually really neat. If we just do our unique minds, our unique disposition. Dispositions. Though disposition we use differently in part 1, so this is going to be temperaments or personalities. Now I think temperament would be the most accessible word for this. I think, and I could be wrong, I think temperament is what people think of when they think of the big 5, like conscientiousness and openness to experience. When people hear personality, I think they think of more so like their unique gimmicks or like their idiosyncrasies, which is like more learned, but also there's some aspect of disposition here where like they've been crystallized over time and whatnot. Carrie Unk, love to hear your brain work. Thank you. Carry on, sir. I have no idea what that was. Unk. No idea on Unk. Notice how disposition is a bit like motioned alignment. Oh, I see. Disposition. Yeah, I don't know the origins or the etymology of the word, but you could be onto something there. All right, one of the most robust ways that nature and nurture converge is in your personality profile. Each person has a distinct constellation of traits, such as being more outgoing versus reserved, or disciplined versus spontaneous. And these traits deeply influence how you interpret the world and pursue goals. Psychologists have often summarized personality in terms of the big 5 traits. Everyone varies on the dimensions, and research shows this variation is meaningful for life outcomes. So let's put this down here. Notably, personality has a substantial heritable component. About 40 to 60% as noted earlier, and that's what Gemini said yesterday, but it is also shaped by unique life experiences, with non-shared environment accounting for most of the environmental influence on traits. One thing that we mentioned in part 1 is that personality traits are pretty static after 2 years old for 75% of the population. Like I think it was like only 25% of the population, 1/4, sees significant changes in temperament over their life after the age of 2, which is kind of crazy. Also potentially controversial. The other thing that to point out here is when we're talking about the big 5 traits, or the big 5 here, we're in some sense, this is like completely speculative as to like what this thing is, like what your personality is, what conscientiousness is in a person, like what that actually means. So what we do is we just come up with questions that are very similar, that many people take, and then we leverage those questions to figure out what camps we can put them in, like what clusters come up, and then we use those outcomes, and we correlate those outcomes with things that we're able to identify in the world, like successful outcomes. Like for conscientiousness, we see high correlation with favorable outcomes in like jobs and whatnot. So there, like that gives the substance of what conscientiousness is. It's a useful thing because it has that correlation, and really your conscientiousness is like conscientiousness itself is only something that arises when someone takes these tests. It's similar to IQ. It's like, you know, there's we could argue what intelligence means in a person. However, there's a set of questions that you could answer that's going to give you a score, and that score, roughly speaking, correlates with certain outcomes the probability that you'll achieve certain outcomes. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to, not achieve those outcomes. And it doesn't mean that that number that you got was like correct or like is some absolute number, because perhaps if you took a slightly different IQ test, you would have answered the question slightly differently and you would have gotten a slightly different number. But, people, they try to make the questions very similar to different tests so that this actually works, that this is robust enough. And so the question is, why did they arrive at these big five? And I think that's what this is going to discuss, like what each of these things correlate with. Now, obviously, each of these are rather intuitive. Like, we could kind of think of what openness to experience means or what extroversion means. Like, these are like very intuitive categories. However, they're particularly powerful because they correlate with certain things we see in the world. All right. And then, this is all, I'm literally just going to, like Jordan Peterson's personality lectures for this stuff. But yeah, he talks about, he has a whole lecture series just literally on this one topic. And, yeah, on one hand, there's interesting population-wide phenomena, such as like you can consider, the one thing he says, you can consider that the reason why the vast majority of people that are in prison are men is because men are like, imagine two normal curves, one for men, one for women. Men are slightly, to the left. So like they're slightly, their average is slightly more disagreeable. But that means that at the very left, that there's a little bit of that curve for men that is out farther to the left than women. So the most antisocial people in the world are most likely men. Or I should say, the set of the most antisocial people consists of more men than women. I should say something like that. Or if you had a random sample of 1,000 of the most antisocial people, you had to bet on with your life, then you would want to bet on it. That one person plucked out of that was a man. So. That's kind of that's kind of the power of this. However, we don't need to talk about population statistics here. We're only focused on the person, the individual here. So if you know that you're conscientious or you're not conscientious, what does that mean for what you can do and what you should do to in light of that? To either counteract it or to leverage it, or conscientiousness, I say it that way because I think generally you want to be more conscientious than not, but openness to experience is not necessarily a good or a bad thing to some extent. Extroversion similarly, like there's pros and cons of extroversion and introversion. The question is, if you know that you're extrovert or introvert, how might that affect the space that you're dealing with, and what might be useful to know such that you gain more power with your own life. All right, conscientiousness. This trait involves being organized, responsible, and good at delayed gratification. It has emerged as one of the strongest personality predictors of success in work and academics. People high in conscientiousness tend to set clear goals, make detailed plans, and persist in execution. They also have a higher tendency to avoid procrastination by managing sub-goals effectively. So I'm going to just gank this whole thing. But I do want to read like a whole like a whole book on the big five if it exists. In fact, a review found that conscientious individuals often don't rely on sheer willpower more than others. Instead, they structure their lives to minimize temptations, essentially planning for success. So this is huge, actually. This is like the most important thing that I could have read today. This is like the thesis for a lot of part 2. It's like, what can we do to make things easier for ourselves so that we aren't just mashing our head against the wall with sheer willpower and discipline. This trait is partly innate, but can be nurtured through habits. Its influence is broad. Conscientious people, by virtue of being disciplined and methodical, usually find it easier to identify realistic goals and steadily work towards them, whereas someone low in conscientiousness might struggle with follow-through. All right, so I'm going to take it all. Openness to experience. Openness reflects curiosity, imagination, and a preference for novelty and variety. Individuals high in openness tend to have broader perspectives and more creative thinking. They enjoy learning and often seek out new experiences, which can expand their understanding of what opportunities exist. A high openness person might, for example, be more inclined to travel or explore diverse fields, leading them to discover unconventional goals or innovative solutions. Research suggests openness has some shared genetic basis with certain personal goals. For example, a twin study found genetic overlap between openness and goals related to intellectual pursuit. Interesting. If you're high in openness, you likely see the world as full of possibilities and are willing to question norms, a mindset that can lead to unique and ambitious goal setting. In contrast, someone lower in openness may prefer familiar paths and thus set more conventional goals aligned with what they already know. Okay. Extroversion. I should take one of these tests like on stream. I think that would be kind of fun. This trait encompasses sociability, assertiveness, and positive emotionality. Extroverts often find energy in interacting with others and may naturally build larger social networks. This can translate to seeing more social opportunities in the world. For instance, they might more readily spot chances to collaborate, lead, or influence because they engage with people frequently. Extroverts also tend to experience positive emotions more often, which, as we'll see later, can broaden one's scope of attention and thinking. Aha. That means that an extrovert's upbeat mood might help them notice opportunities or novel ideas that others miss. On the flip side, introverts, low extroversion, might excel in solitary, deep focus pursuits and could have the unique advantage of being less swayed by groupthink when setting their goals. Okay, agreeableness. Agreeableness involves empathy, cooperation, and a trusting, helpful nature. High agreeable individuals understand the world in a very people-centered way. They value relationships and often pursue goals that have a pro-social or collaborative aspect. For example, an agreeable person might be uniquely motivated to set goals around helping others, building community, or creating harmony. They may also excel at conflict resolution and teamwork in pursuit of goals. However, being very high in agreeableness could mean being less competitive or hesitant to pursue goals that might inconvenience others. In contrast, someone lower in agreeableness might approach the world more analytically or competitively, which could be advantageous in cutthroat environments, but possibly limiting in cooperative endeavors. The other thing that we have to be like mindful of is that we don't go like too far in the prescriptive with these guys. Similar to like how with like astrology, you know, there's so much disparity of people within like a I don't know, a category, a month, and we don't want to prime people to think about, you know, their entire life towards like or in a very static way. So we just need to be careful about that, how we talk about these. I don't think I'm gonna want part one to or part two to talk about the big five in the way that we're reading it here. Neuroticism represents the tendency to experience negative emotions like anxiety, depression, or stress. A person low in neuroticism, emotionally stable, typically handles setbacks calmly and bounces back quicker, which obviously helps in pursuing long-term goals. Those higher in neuroticism may perceive the world as more threatening or full of obstacles, which can make goal pursuit feel more daunting. Interestingly, emotional stability has been linked to proactive behavior. One study found that people with greater emotional stability were more likely to engage in environmentally friendly actions, partly because they felt a sense of control, internal locus, over outcomes. In general, someone more emotionally stable might interpret failures as temporary and solvable, while a highly neurotic person might see them as confirmation of pessimistic expectations. This difference in emotional lens can make two people react to the same event in totally unique ways. One sees it as a learning step, the other as a catastrophe, thereby influencing their subsequent goal pursuits. Personality is a core part of what makes you unique because it colors every interaction with the world. It's also relatively stable over time, yet not completely fixed. Major life events or conscious personal development can shift traits gradually, but at any given time, your mix of traits acts like a filter. It influences what you notice or ignore, how you interpret challenges, and what kinds of goals feel attainable or appealing to you. Cognitive differences in understanding the world. Beyond broad personality traits, so this was all on our unique temperament. Cognitive differences. What was this all under? Oh, this is all under personality. Cognitive differences. We got intelligence here. We could talk about neurodivergence in that, which I'm not sure if this is going to touch on, but beyond broad personality traits, people also differ in their cognitive makeup and mental styles, contributing to unique ways of understanding and navigating the world. Cognitive factors include abilities like intelligence and memory, styles of thinking, and tolerance for complexity or ambiguity. These differences can affect how easily one grasps opportunities or solves problems on the path to a goal. General intelligence and executive function. All right. General intelligence and executive function. Cognitive ability, often measured as IQ or specific aptitudes, is one area of individual difference with clear impacts. Someone with a high capacity for abstract learning, abstract reasoning, fast learning, and problem solving can often make sense of complex situations more readily, which may help in formulating effective goals and strategies. Indeed, intelligence has a known genetic component and tends to improve with enriched environments, as noted earlier. But interestingly, intelligence alone is not a guarantee of goal achievement. Research by Angela Duckworth found that grit, perseverance, can outweigh IQ in predicting who achieves the highest academic performance. So we won't talk about grit here, but we will. I think we have Angela Duckworth's name like 4 times in part 2 notes at this point. Intelligence does, however, provide a tool set. High cognitive ability can help you understand intricate systems, useful for ambitious scientific or entrepreneurial goals, and learn from mistakes quickly. Meanwhile, specific elements of executive functions, such as working memory, mental focus, and inhibitory control, vary between individuals and influence goal management. Strong executive function helps one juggle sub-goals and resist distractions. In fact, deficits in executive control are linked to difficulties like procrastination. A twin study showed that poor goal management was generally linked with a tendency to procrastinate. Thus, someone with naturally strong executive functions or training in that area may find it easier to stay organized and follow through on plans, whereas others may need to consciously develop strategies to compensate. Okay. Cognitive style and worldview. People often, so this is cognitive style and worldview. People also differ in how they think about information, which shapes their unique worldview. For instance, some individuals have an analytic, detail-focused cognitive style, while others think more holistically or rely on intuition. Neither style is inherently better. Each can influence goal pursuit differently. All right. Analytic thinkers might excel at setting very specific measurable goals and systematically analyzing how to achieve them. More holistic or creative thinkers might excel at envisioning bold, innovative goals and adapting flexibly. Additionally, a tolerance for ambiguity, so we talked about this actually, is a cognitive personality facet that varies. Recent research shows that individuals who are averse to uncertainty actually organize knowledge differently in their brains. I'm going to try to gank this. In one study, people who disliked uncertainty tended to keep concepts in their mind more segregated and far apart, which makes it easier for them to distinguish precise meanings, but harder to generalize or see connections. That's interesting. Are all these the same? Yeah. In contrast, those comfortable with uncertainty had more overlapping or integrated concept representations. What does this mean practically? Someone who can't stand uncertainty might prefer clear-cut goals and familiar approaches, whereas someone who tolerates ambiguity might venture into emerging fields or undefined paths. The very way our brains categorize and connect ideas can differ predictably based on such needs. As one professor put it, even fundamental processes of ascribing meaning to the world can vary with personality-driven cognitive differences. This leads to truly unique mental maps of the world for each person. All right, creativity and divergent thinking. Another cognitive dimension is creativity, the ability to generate novel ideas or see unconventional solutions. Some people often associate associated with high openness or certain thinking styles are adept at divergent thinking, brainstorming multiple possibilities. Interesting. This can help in identifying unique opportunities or innovative goals that others overlook. Creative individuals might connect dots between disparate domains, for example, using a hobby in art to solve a business problem, thus carving out niche goals that align with their unique perspective. Cognitive research finds positive moods and broad attention can enhance creativity. And Dharmadham's found that many other practices can help enhance creativity. Okay, which is one reason an optimistic, relaxed person may literally see more options around them. Their thinking isn't narrowed by stress or strict rules. Wow. Learning and knowledge differences. Each person also accumulates different knowledge and skills, which form the lens through which they view opportunity. So actually, I like this lens, the way that we're talking about this, because this is kind of the breadth of discussion that I was hoping to have in this section. Just mentioning all the different things that can contribute to how people experience the world and opportunities, as well as their ability to capitalize on them and pursue goals. Each person also accumulates different knowledge and skills, which form the lens through which they view opportunities. Your education and self-directed learning create a mental framework. For example, a person with extensive knowledge in technology will understand the world through that lens. They might spot an opportunity for a new app where another person sees only a nuisance. Similarly, someone trained in psychology might notice interpersonal dynamics and thus identify goals related to improving relationships or mental health in their community. These knowledge-based differences often stem from both interest itself influenced by personality, and environment, what you are exposed to. They contribute to uniqueness by equipping you with particular mental models and problem-solving approaches. So this is a very surface level discussion, but that's fine. In summary, cognitive differences both in raw abilities and in style mean that each individual literally processes the world differently, whether one is a quick study or a deep thinker, risk averse or ambiguity tolerant, creatively divergent or methodologically convergent. These variations will influence what goals seem achievable and how one plans or improvises to reach them. And crucially, cognitive factors interact with our emotions and motivations, which leads us to the next domain, mindset and motivation. Okay, so this is what we're now talking. This is what we're going to talk about in the following section, the core levers of agency here. Mindset and beliefs in shaping perception and goals. All right, I do have an out at some point because certain DLC dropped tonight. I just need to make sure that there's plans. All right, I sent out the call. I might have to check on that every like 20 minutes. All right, mindset and beliefs shaping perception and goals. Two people with the same talent and background can still diverge in success based on their mindset, the core beliefs they hold about themselves and the world. So it's somewhat ambiguous, the line between mindset and some of like the styles, like learning styles that we talked about. Like we like to think that our learning style or our styles of thinking are aspects of ourself, like they're like some static thing that we have for the rest of our life, but you know that stuff changes as well. So you know we're just talking about things that are more or less internalized and more or less fundamentally shaping our thought. Psychology research has shown that how we think about our abilities, how we attribute outcomes, and what we expect can become a self-fulfilling prophecy in goal pursuit. Okay, so this is like framing discussion. I don't even know if this is like fundamental framing discussion. Here are some key mindset factors that contribute to our uniqueness in approaching goals. Self-efficacy. Oh, so we did talk about self-efficacy yesterday, right? Is that here? Where do we say efficacy? Late game, social cognitive theory, and self-efficacy. Okay, maybe we will need to put this earlier than that. Self-efficacy is the confidence that you can execute actions required to achieve specific goals. Albert Bandura, who pioneered this concept, demonstrated that self-efficacy affects what goals we choose, how hard we strive, and our resilience to failures. Nice. People with high self-efficacy approach challenges as tasks to be mastered, recover quickly from setbacks, and commit more strongly to their aims. So I'm guessing we'll be able to find like a full book or paper on this topic. In contrast, those with low self-efficacy often shy away from difficult goals, doubt their capacity, and give up sooner. This belief is partly shaped by past experiences. For example, past successes build efficacy and social influence. Seeing similar others succeed can boost your own self-efficacy. Okay. So this might be a topic that we want to talk about sooner. But I'm not sure where. I'm going to put it in the resilience strategies here. The result is a significant individual difference, even with equal skills. A person who truly believes I can do this will persist and likely achieve more than someone who of equal talent who internally thinks I'm not capable of this. In essence, self-efficacy is a filter on reality. It influences whether you even attempt a goal and how you interpret obstacles. Wow. I need to bold this guy. This is crazy stuff. Studies repeatedly find that higher self-efficacy correlates with better performance and goal achievement across domains from academics to career. So I think it would be beneficial to like get this out in the open so that we could talk about what would allow us to have better self-efficacy. Like that's like kind of a meta strategy that helps us achieve our goals generally. Thus, nurturing a strong sense of self-efficacy can be a self-help takeaway. It makes the difference between seeing an opportunity and saying, why not me, versus I could never. All right, locus of control. Internal versus external. This classic concept by Julian Rotter describes whether you tend to see outcomes as resulting from your own actions or from external forces like luck or fate. Wow. An internal locus of control means you feel you have agency. You make things happen, whereas an external locus means you believe things happen to you. Individuals differ greatly on this spectrum. And it shapes motivation and goal pursuit profoundly. Those with an internal locus generally take more initiative and responsibility. They believe their efforts matter, so they are more likely to set goals and work towards them diligently. Research has found that an internal locus is associated with greater success in school and work, as well as better health and well-being. So that's kind of a huge topic. In fact, one review noted that having a strongly internal locus of control is linked to higher life satisfaction and achievement. So these are like part 3 things that we have to talk about as well. Part 3. Yeah, the awkward thing about part 2 and part 3 is that having higher well-being helps you achieve your goals. And achieving your goals helps you have higher well-being. So the question for us is, how do we distinguish those two topics in a way that makes sense? All right, the reason is intuitive. If you feel in control, you are more likely to act in ways that improve the situation. One study even showed that during the COVID-19 pandemic, people with a more internal locus were more willing to adopt protective behaviors like social distancing because they believed their personal actions could affect their health outcomes. Interesting. I don't know if that's too political. By contrast, someone with a predominantly external locus might downplay the impact of their own choices. Success is mostly luck or who you know, and thus might not pursue goals as proactively. Extreme externalizers can develop learned helplessness, a sense that nothing they do makes a difference, sapping motivation. However, it's healthiest to have a balance. We recognize some factors are out of our control, but still focus on what we can control. So this should be like an early discussion, honestly. Notably, studies indicate that fostering a more internal... So actually, I want to mention that. This, capital letters, is an important thesis that we should make in this first major section, which can set the stage for recognizing slash highlighting our deliberate engagement with intentionality. Okay. What's your opinion on the idea of B.F. Skinner of behaviorism out of curiosity? I believe it has limits. I don't know the extent of B.F. Skinner. Whoa, what's going on here? Boost my day. Nothing? Share simple, silly ways to instantly de-stress. Suggest a healthy meal. Round up some wholesome news from the day. All right, we could do that. All right, but let's get some Skinner over here. Yo, Onion Helmet, what's good? We are doing the same thing we did yesterday, except with ChatGPT this time. Okay, B.F. Skinner. What is the essence and scope of B.F. Skinner's work? Somewhat brief. All right, news for today, Wednesday the 3rd. The 10-year-old literary prodigy in a heartwarming story out of Virginia, Zoe Robinson, a 10-year-old girl, is making headlines for having already written 10 books. Oh my gosh. We're so behind. Zoe, who started her writing career at age 5 with a book about manners, now writes about everything from gardening to adventures in Antarctica. There's got to be a penguin in that. The process, Zoe dictates her stories to an app and her mother helps her format them for publication. The impact, she isn't just an author, she's a motivational speaker. She recently traveled to Paris and London and gives talks on empowering yourself to do your best. Her next book will focus on gardening, inspired by the time she spends doing yard work with her grandmother. All right, rebel nuns win showdown with church. In a quirky and spirited human interest story, 3 nuns have successfully escaped a senior living home to return to their beloved abbey in the countryside. The trio had been moved to the retirement facility against their wishes, but missed their independence and religious community. The outcome, after a standoff that captured local attention, the church leadership relented, allowing the sisters to return to the abbey they have called home for decades. It is a victory for autonomy and the enduring spirit of friendship. Wow. Nature's comeback, seahorses return. Environmentalists are celebrating a baby boom of rare spiny seahorses in the UK. After disappearing from the area during the pandemic, divers have confirmed that the species has bounced back in record numbers. Not only have they returned, but divers report that half are males and most are pregnant. Wow, in seahorse couples, the male carries the eggs. This resurgence is credited to expanded marine protections and the no anchor zones that protect the seagrass meadows where they live. All right, I'm going to switch back. That's fake. I met Zoe. How many books has Zoe written then? Or has Zoe written any books? Like how you skipped the name of that UK town. Yeah, I wasn't going to try that. I actually don't even know if I processed. Oh, it wasn't even hard. It was just Studland Bay. Okay. It was just straight out of apathy then. Okay, B.F. Skinner's work is the cornerstone of behaviorism, a school of thought that focuses on observable behaviors rather than internal mental states. Yeah, well, I think right off the bat, I think a lot of contemporary neuroscience strictly points out that behaviorism can only get you so far. So I think I agree. I believe it does have its limits. There's a lot of stuff happening under the hood that is relevant to these studies. Control by consequences. The core of Skinner's work is operant conditioning. While earlier scientists like Pavlov studied how stimuli triggers reflexes, Skinner studied how consequences shape voluntary actions. The central thesis: behavior is determined by its consequences. If an action is followed by a reward, reinforcement, it is likely to be repeated. If followed by a punishment or lack of reward, it is likely to fade. Radical behaviorism. This was Skinner's philosophy. He argued that free will is largely an illusion. He believed that all human action, including thoughts, feelings, and language, is the result of environmental history and reinforcement rather than an autonomous internal mind. Well, I agree on that front. And I kind of agree on this front. Like we can make sense of it in a more granular way, like looking at actual like neuroplasticity and predictive processing and affective punishment, you know, and affective reward. You could always think about predictive processing as involving consequences, I think. The scope from pigeons to society. Skinner's ambition was to take principles observed in the lab and apply them to the design of a better society. He invented the operant conditioning chamber. That is terrifying. To precisely measure animal behavior under controlled conditions, proving that complex behaviors could be shaped step by step. That sounds rather grim. He advocated for programmed instruction and teaching machines, precursors to modern software that provide immediate feedback and allow students to move at their own pace. Yeah, this is huge. Like, I think a completely personalized educational system would optimize learning by not pushing certain people too hard and not boring people too much. So his work laid the foundation for applied behavior analysis and cognitive behavioral therapy, used widely today to treat phobias, addiction, and autism. In controversial works like Walden 2 and Beyond Freedom and Dignity, he argued that we should systematically design our culture and environment to reinforce kindness and productivity rather than relying on punishment or vague concepts of freedom. Okay. I thought you said you believe in free will as the ability to internally control what one does with one's thoughts. This is where we have to get into the nuance of words, but the idea is that we can think about a notion of free will that we can feel that we have, but once again, like this feeling that we have free will is something that's like culturally given to us, right? Like we have the concepts of free will, we have the concepts that I can do these things and I could freely act in the world. These are conceptual things that appear to us when we think about them. And the question is, is what's prompting us to think about them something that we intended to do, which I would argue it's not always, right? Like we don't choose our thoughts. So this is let's just emergence of compatibilism. To determine what freedom can be, we must first be clear about what our framework has revealed it cannot be. Our exploration has challenged two common sense notions of free will. First, by accepting a world governed by physical processes, we acknowledge that our brains are the result of prior material causes. This is what Skinner's talking about. We cannot authoritatively change the state of the physical world beyond the possibilities our own physical structure allows. So for Skinner, it's like, okay, given what our structures allow, following behaviorism, let's gamify that. Let's strategically figure out what stimuli we should set up for ourselves so that we optimally get to the place we want to go. Second, when we turned inward, our phenomenological investigation revealed that we do not have direct control over the thoughts and emotions that arise in our consciousness. They seem to thrust themselves upon us. Nevertheless, our exploration of our implicit self-understanding provides us an avenue for a separate, robust conceptualization of free will that is commensurate with these faulty prior notions. Specifically, our exploration allows us to think about our freedom, to think about it as a constitutive property we experience ourselves to have, right? I feel like I'm free. A semantic fact revealed through our experience of meaning. We can make it explicit by reflecting on our concrete activities and capabilities. For example, I understand myself as someone who can sit on a chair, and this understanding affords me the feeling of freedom to do so. So to answer your question more directly, I thought you said you believe in free will. So I like, we need to just be more careful about the words. Like, it's not that I like believe in free will or I don't believe in free will or I think free will exists or it doesn't. It's just the way that we have to think about free will is one where we're clear about why we even have the thought of free will in the first place. It's something that's learned and internalized and contingent. And so if what we're looking for is that feeling, right? We want to feel like we're free. Then what ought we do in order to feel that way? So this kind of allows us to bridge together like the discussion that we had about the normative aspect of our understanding, like what ought to be a pen and what should I think is a pen, when I see it, or like, for all these concepts, what these concepts imply, like about what we should do and what we should say. So now we can think about that in the context of freedom itself. So for me to actually understand myself as being free, what ought I think or do? What would I need to do in order to earn that? Or what would I need to do in order to deserve that? And that's what kind of sets us up here. So, okay, you believe in free will as the ability to internally control what one does with one's thoughts. So I would say that's too ambiguous, that description. The only control that we have, in some sense, the only deliberate control, as I understand it, is the ability to reflect in the moment. But like, once again, like, this is like the idea that what I'm doing when I'm reflecting is something that is like culturally contingent. It's my conceptual understanding that what I'm doing when I reflect is reflecting. That said, like, that's all we have. That's what I've got at my disposal. So the one thing I can do right now is reflect in the moment. I can think about some intention. Now, once I stop thinking about that intention, once I stop reflecting and I just start going off in my habitual way of going about the world, right? I'm like walking around, I'm doing stuff. My brain is changing. Like, things could be changing in the sense of how I even think about the goal, like whether I think I'm actually doing the goal or not. Like, a bunch of stuff is shifting as I'm not paying attention. So the whole argument in part one is we have to periodically reflect. We have to reflect again and consider, hey, is the intention that I had previously something that I'm still even following? Like, can I justifiably say that I am doing the thing that I wanted to do? And this is where we earn our freedom. We have to earn our freedom by periodically reflecting and realigning ourselves with what we actually intend to do. Question away, fire away. So yeah, it's like, the control that we have over our thoughts is only control over our future thoughts. Like, I can deliberately think about what I can do right now to affect my future thoughts. And like, hopefully my thinking of a certain thing sets me in that direction, knowing that, the moment I stop paying attention, I'm going to just start going off in my habitual automatic way. But hopefully, if I think like, okay, I want to go get this type of food right now, and then I'm going to get in the car and go. A lot of me going to get in the car is going to be like automatic and habitual, but I I put in the work that actually has now steered myself such that I'm going to go and get that food. Now there's like a small chance I completely forget what I was doing by the time I get to the car and start driving, but I doubt that's going to be the case. In this moment, I thought about something and it affected the connections in my brain enough so that I now am actually going to go and do the thing that I thought I wanted to do. So that's kind of the the shtick. It would be, we have the ability to currently, or in the moment, reflect in such a way that it affects our future thoughts. I wouldn't like. I guess I worry that you're conflating this with some more libertarian free will, where we have like some control over our thoughts in the moment, which is something that I think we directly oppose. You know, our mindfulness exercises pointed out to us, it revealed to us that we don't have control over our thoughts in the moment. Walden 2 is so funny. What is that title hinting at? Henry David Thoreau? Where was Walden 2? I know this was probably like 10 minutes ago. As a Walden 2 and controversial works like Walden 2, a utopian novel. What is that title hinting at? I don't know. It's kind of unrelated. Do you think suggesting a movie that is focused on aesthetics and emotional appeal to someone does more to change their mind than presenting real cold hard facts? Are you saying like the movie would change their view more than the facts? Because I would believe so. Like if you showed a story of like an anecdotal story about someone having hardship, let's just say, yeah, like let's just say there's someone that's like particularly not empathic about poor people, right? And you showed them a movie about someone who had a loving family and, you know, seemed to put a lot of effort into their work, and they were really poor, and just because of their situation, you could see in the movie that they're just unable to get out of this situation. It's a real bummer. Now that would be more compelling to someone than if you were to just say, hey, like across the population, like this, you know, something's, if I just told you about scarcity, that's a great example. If I went to the scarcity example, scarcity is so damning, like of how we think about intelligence and how we think about socioeconomic status, and yet I don't think that like scarcity would be that compelling to someone. But a movie where you watch someone in that situation would be compelling. What about music? Music, not so much. I don't think. I mean, it would have to have a story. It's really about the story, I think. But I don't know if music would be able to do it. It depends what you're trying to get at, but like I mean, while music is, you know, profound for many people, it doesn't pack a punch like that. I mean, maybe like, you know what? I should take that back, because some music might like give something extra to it. Like so much of what we believe is based on how we feel like it is situated in our social environment. So like Eminem made politics kind of cool at the time, right? Not more recently. I don't think he has succeeded in that. But at the time, in the early 2000s, he made anti-Bush politics very cool for a lot of people. And yeah, that might be more compelling to someone than just like a talk about the economy. Like he just, he made it fun. And, you could consider that that's our political sphere in the past like 2 years. It's like, we're seeing that it's really based on what's cool at a fundamental level. And what's cool is kind of shifting back and forth. If you walked an atheist into a cathedral during Mass, or during a reading of the Psalms in Latin, I honestly think it could affect them to such a degree that they might become Catholic. Yeah, I actually agree. Yeah. Um, especially if they're devoid of such things, right? Yeah. If it's some experience that they're completely not privy to, and then they just get hit with it, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, there is another whole side of the world that I didn't realize." Same with psychedelics. Like that can really open your mind up to what is possible. Especially for people that are very close-minded. All right, I have to check if my call was heated at all. Um, was my call heated? All right, I think it's just me and Jago. Okay. But then why do dumb people? I thought I saw dumb. It's literally just do people. Then why do people change their minds when presented with logical arguments too? Because when people, so the thing that changes people's minds is experience. And when people hear arguments, it's not that the thing that changes someone's mind isn't the argument in some like static sense. It's not like you just gave the argument and the argument was right or wrong and then it changes someone's mind like that. Like someone has to think about the thing you just said, and so this is an experience they're having now. And really the experience is them applying it and connecting it to their own understanding. So that like if that experience that you give them is so enlightening that it's worth changing their mind. I say worth changing their mind in a pragmatic sense. Like it's almost like if something changes their mind, then it changes their mind. But if something triggers the right uh, neuromodulators, the right emotions, if enough dopamine is released and not dropped, given that sometimes a good argument feels terrible to someone who doesn't want to be wrong. So that's why a lot of times good arguments go fall short, because people are they would rather not feel the discomfort of believing that what you just said is potentially true, or they would rather not go through the effort of like connecting what you just said to what they understand, and how they now have to deal with a conflict in their understanding and what you just said. And when I say that they don't want to do this, I don't mean that they deliberately don't want to do this. It's just that like this is just kind of unconsciously happening. Is it just an aesthetic and emotional consideration? Yeah. So I think it's all emotions at the end of the day. There's no, we're not like, once again, we're not rational beings. Our emotions allow us to be rational in the way that we think we are. All right, this is why propaganda is so important. Yes, absolutely. Hell yeah, propaganda. Yo, Daniel End, what's good? Stanuscript the manuscript. That's very nice. Yeah, remind me that I should include that in the video about rationality that I hope to make in like 3 months. The idea of persuasion. Mr. Onion, sir. I didn't know you were knighted. Wait a second. How is Huge sword is a sex-based term. Come on. What's going on here, Twitch? I think he might be. He has a huge sword. Nice. Well, it's in the name. Helmet. Very, yeah, I guess it is. True. All right, next one. A massive win for global health. A major medical study released today suggests that a single dose of the HPV vaccine appears to be just as effective as the traditional 2-dose regimen in preventing cervical cancer. Very cool. This finding could revolutionize cancer prevention in developing nations, where logistics and cost often make administering 2 doses difficult. It effectively doubles the supply of the life-saving vaccine, allowing millions more people to be protected. And then quick hits of joy. Solar balconies. A new report shows that over 1 million homes in Germany are now powered by balcony solar, a small plug-in solar panels that hang from apartment terraces. It's a massive grassroots shift towards green energy. Nice. Guillermo del Toro's highly anticipated Frankenstein movie, released on Netflix today, is earning rave reviews, not just for its visuals, but for being a surprisingly wholesome and hopeful modernization of the classic tale. I got Netflix for a month because of Stranger Things, but I might watch this now. Very cool. All right. Thank you, Kanye. Very cool. All right. Notably, studies indicate that fostering a more internal... Okay, where are we at here? However, it's healthiest to balance, right? Notably, studies indicate that fostering a more internal locus, believing in one's influence, can be taught and is linked to greater resilience and success. Hell yeah, that's what we're looking for. And I do want to actually get this thing. No, I think I'll find it. Find the literature on this bad boy. As one resource put it, believing in our power to control our life makes us more likely to take chances and feel confident in our autonomy, whereas feeling controlled by external forces often leads to passivity. Okay. What is that? What is this emoji? Flushed. Nice. Very nice. This element of mindset clearly differentiates people. For example, encountering a career setback, an internalizer thinks, I can learn from this and try a new strategy, while an externalizer thinks, bad luck, there's nothing I could have done. Over time, such differences compound into very different life paths. Okay. Yeah, this whole framing idea needs to be like a top topic here. Growth versus fixed mindset. So this is another thing, right? This is another framing idea. And what did I have this in? Resilience strategies? No, I think we gotta put this in framing. And growth mindset here. Okay. Coined by Carol Dweck. These mindsets refer to our implicit beliefs about whether abilities can improve. A growth mindset is the belief that skills and intelligence can be developed with effort, whereas a fixed mindset sees talents as innate and unchangeable. Research has shown that individuals with a growth mindset embrace challenges, persist longer, and ultimately achieve more in learning and performance than those with a fixed mindset. All right. For example, students with growth mindset consistently outperformed those with fixed mindset in school because they view setbacks as learning opportunities rather than evidence of lack of ability. In practice, a growth mindset person might take on a difficult project thinking, I'll grow through this, while a fixed-minded person of equal talent might avoid it to prevent looking stupid. Mindset thus makes you unique in how You respond to failure. So we should mention this probably with the... Yeah, I'm wondering if we should just workshop those initial sections. I think that's kind of what I'm looking at now. Notably, growth mindset can be nurtured. There are interventions and teaching methods that successfully shift students towards growth-oriented thinking, improving their resilience. The takeaway, believing that you can improve fuels a virtuous cycle of motivation. You try harder, which leads to improvement, which reinforces the belief. On the other hand, believing your abilities are fixed can lead to a fragile self-esteem that crumbles at obstacles. Thus, mindset differences are a crucial piece of the uniqueness puzzle. All right, so I don't know if we want to go into like mindsets for the the initial like context of a person. I think this is more so a discussion of what we can do that affects our motivation and whatnot, which would be something along the lines of framing. Acquire locusts. Noted. It doesn't matter if you acquire them. It's what you do about. It's what you do with them. You know. Who are you going to prank with these locusts? All right, optimism and positivity. All right, here we go. Now this, though, I think this is kind of a... people think about this as like more of a personality trait, so maybe... Ooh, this is tough. This is just tough. I'll just put it up top here for now. Optimism and positivity. A generally optimistic outlook, expecting good outcomes, can strongly affect goal pursuit. Optimists tend to see opportunity where pessimists see problems. Psychologically, positive emotions have a broadening effect on cognition. Moments of joy, interest, or gratitude actually expand our range of thought action options. All right, this is really cool. I gotta write down this. Okay. Empirical studies demonstrate that people induced into a positive mood think more flexibly and can envision more possibilities and solutions. Wow. This suggests that an upbeat, optimistic person literally perceives a richer array of opportunities in their environment. They might more readily identify a silver lining or an unconventional path forward. In contrast, a person who often feels negative emotions or is very pessimistic has a narrowed focus. Negative emotions like fear and anger tend to tunnel our vision onto the immediate problem, useful for survival, but not for long-term creative planning. Yeah, unfortunately, there's somewhat of an argument that neuroticism helps you out in survival. However, you know, given that we are quite wealthy, relatively speaking, it doesn't help as much. It's kind of a nuisance. That said, you know, if you have kids, then neuroticism perhaps is really a good thing to have, even at your own detriment, or at your own short-term detriment, immediate detriment. Thus, one's habitual emotional state contributes to uniqueness in goal setting. The lucky people mentioned in studies by Wiseman are a great example. They aren't magically fortunate, but they think differently. Wiseman found that people who consider themselves lucky are generally more relaxed and open, and therefore they notice chance opportunities that unlucky people miss. Wow. In one experiment, I'm going to grab this guy now. In one experiment, participants were asked to count photos in a newspaper. A huge ad inside announced, "Stop counting, there are 43 photographs," and even offered money to anyone who saw it. The self-described unlucky people, being overly focused on the task, often miss the obvious opportunity, whereas the lucky ones noticed it and cashed in. Wow. That's kind of neat. What do we have? We have a possible ban evader. And then we've got, oh man, the spam bot went from best viewers to cheap viewers. That's sort of sad in some way. Oh no, does it say cheap viewers now? Oh, that is kind of sad. Though I think I've seen cheap viewers before. Maybe that was something I saw like a year ago, and maybe they're switching back and forth. I downloaded the DLC and installed. Oh my gosh, that's the call. All right, we might need to call this short. Okay, Jago, I'm gonna get to up to this point, and then I'll end. So this should be like 5 minutes. We are like here. Yeah, we are here. This highlights how a flexible, positive mindset can literally reveal more options in life. Moreover, optimists tend to use positive reframing, seeing the good in bad situations, which sustains their motivation. For example, in the same interview, Wiseman notes that lucky people practice finding benefits in adversity. Far from delusion, this mindset fosters resilience and the will to keep pursuing goals despite setbacks. Meanwhile, a more pessimistic or negative thinking person might be quicker to abandon goals when things go wrong because they emphasize the downside. In sum, a habit of optimism can widen one's perceived opportunity. So what would be a habit of optimism? That's the question, because that'll help us out. If there is a way to like internalize optimism, like if there's a practice of optimism that actually benefits how you think in the world, then that is something that we need to talk about in part 2. Keep going. Do what you need to do. I'm having some dessert. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. What DLC and what dessert? Those are the questions, right? Night Rain DLC and an eclair. Not the ice cream, the baked good. Before you end today's live stream, I have a recommendation related to science, which I believe might be relevant for the document. I might have to do that one tomorrow because we've got a harder stop today, given that we need to battle the night. The Night Lord needs to die. Delicious bone apple teeth. Absolutely. Okay, values and purpose. Each individual also has a unique set of values and a sense of meaning that guides their ambitions. So this is something that I don't think we would talk about in this section as well. But we did want to talk about that in like the identifying goals. And it's really like identifying your values. But this is it's kind of a different topic. So I'm not sure. No, I'm going to put it still in the unique minds here. We have different values. I think we should talk about it. Values and purpose. Each individual also has a unique set of values and a sense of meaning that guides their ambitions. Some people are driven by altruism, some by creativity, others by a desire for recognition or security. These deep values often stem from both cultural family influence and personal reflection. They act as an internal compass for identifying goals. For example, a person who highly values independence will strive for goals that offer autonomy, whereas someone who values community might be drawn to goals that involve teamwork or social impact. Research in self-determination theory emphasizes that intrinsic goals, aligned with one's core values and interests, are pursued with more enthusiasm and lead to greater satisfaction than extrinsic goals pursued due to external pressure or rewards. So this we would definitely talk about in the motivation section. I think we probably have that in the notes already. Thus, knowing what truly matters to you, your personal why, is part of your uniqueness and plays into how easily you commit to and persevere in goals. Two people might have the same ability, but if one finds personal meaning in a task, they'll push through challenges much more readily than someone who doesn't. This is why self-help advice often stresses clarifying your values and purpose. It leverages the motivational power of authenticity. Empirical support comes from studies on goal motives, which find that when people pursue goals for autonomous valued reasons, they experience higher well-being and sustained effort than when they pursue goals due to coercion or solely for reward. Interesting. Is this prompt about a single book? It is not. It is... okay, once I read through this, I'll jump back to the front. In summary, our mindsets and beliefs act like internal lenses that can either sharpen or distort how we see opportunities and challenges. These mental frameworks, self-efficacy, locus of control, growth mindset, optimism, and personal values, differ widely across individuals and are crucial in determining how easily you identify goals and how doggedly you pursue them. How much dog you have in you. That's what it's saying right there. Unlike fixed traits, mindsets can evolve through experiences or deliberate practice, which is encouraging. It means people can, for example, train themselves to adopt more empowering beliefs and improve their goal pursuit success. Okay. The prompt was, I want to write a book on the topic, what makes you unique, regarding how you understand the world, your opportunities within it, and how easily you can identify and pursue your goals. Basically, I want to consider every perspective about what makes each person unique and how they identify and pursue their goals, ranging from nature to nurture. And then it asked me some questions. And I said, I'm looking for a mix between scientific and self-help. I want the disciplines to be as comprehensive as this topic demands. I don't want case studies. This needs to be useful and robust empirical data. I'm not interested in cultural or historical perspectives on uniqueness/ambition unless we can clearly see cultural perspective effects on thought/goals. And then after 14 minutes, 19 sources and 166 searches, we got this thing. So yeah. And that's the same prompt I gave Gemini here. It's the same prompt I gave Gemini yesterday as well. And then you could, with Gemini, you could kind of ask, I want to change certain things about the plan. With ChatGPT, it just kind of gives you some questions and then it runs. But yeah, we've got this thing I'll probably read once we're done this one. And then once we're done like 3 of these, then maybe we just start hitting up some like, I don't know, YouTube, or we just start hitting some, whatever we haven't hit, whatever we haven't covered. And then once we have everything that we think that needs to be covered, then we can start like mashing things together, figuring out what we should be looking at more in depth, because a lot of these things are obviously surface level here. So I really should be like going deep into some of these topics. Okay. Very good prompt. It produced a whole paper. Well, you could give like, you could do the deep research and you could give it the smallest prompt and it'll still produce a whole paper. It's it's for both of these, it's the deep research mode. So it specifically spends a lot of time to come up with a full paper as if it was some academic paper, and it tries to get a bunch of sources, and it's kind of lit. It's kind of awesome. Kind of crazy, honestly. All right, but we gotta get out of here. We gotta fight. All right. Thanks everyone for chilling. Maybe it's because I haven't tried it. I would recommend you try it. Like literally try it with like the most mundane thing. You could try it with shopping stuff. That's kind of fun. Like you could say, you know, I need to get a Christmas gift for my dad. They like this, and this. Can you give me a whole paper on what I should consider? Yeah, you could do it. You could do it on any topic you're just like remotely interested in, and it'll just give you a bunch of stuff. I did it on LASIK because I was wondering if I was able to get LASIK or when I should get LASIK, and I, you know, that was a fun read. Can we do one on Onion Helmet next time? Perhaps. I don't know what it's going to be able to find on Onion Helmet. Like, what happens if I just type in, what do you know about Onion Helmet? All right. I got to get out of here. Thanks, everyone, for chilling. And have a good rest of the day.